All right, let's talk about a huge challenge for, well, pretty much anyone using the cloud. How do you take those unpredictable, sometimes shocking cloud bills and turn them into a real strategic advantage? We're going to dive right in and see how we can all move from just guessing to creating genuine value.
It all kicks off with a really familiar pain point. You get excited, you embrace the cloud for all its power and flexibility, and then the bill comes. And it's, not quite what you had in mind. That, my friends, is the classic cloud cost surprise.
I mean, seriously, who hasn't been there? It's that moment, right? Your heart just sinks a little bit when you open up that invoice. It's so common, it's almost a rite of passage for companies moving to the cloud. And that's the core problem we're going to unpack right now. And this really just nails the disconnect, doesn't it? On one hand, you have the promise of the cloud, which is just incredible, right? We're talking innovation, speed, scale, all the good stuff. But then there's the reality for a lot of us, a constant battle with these variable costs that can lead to some serious budget shock. It's kind of ironic. The very thing that makes the cloud so powerful, its dynamic, on-demand nature, is exactly what makes it so tough to predict.
So the big question is, how do we bridge that gap? Well, we do it by moving away from just guessing and getting into real estimating. And look, this isn't about taking a wild stab in the dark. No, we're talking about a formal FinOps capability. It's called planning and estimating, and it's a disciplined practice for really understanding what your cloud spend could actually be.
Okay, so here's the official definition from the FinOps framework, but I want you to pay close attention to a couple of words here. Estimation and exploration. See, that's what's so important. It's not just about spitting out a number. It's about exploring all these different scenarios to get a handle on both the potential cost and, just as importantly, the potential value.
And this is a super important distinction to make. Estimating is not the same thing as forecasting. They're two different beasts. Think of estimating as the creative exploratory phase. It's where you ask all the what-if questions. What if we use this managed service instead of a plain old virtual machine? Or what if we totally re-architect this app? You're building out multiple scenarios to see what's possible. Forecasting? That comes way later. That's when you've picked your path and you're making a prediction. Okay, this is what we will spend.
Okay, that's all great in theory, right? But if estimating is this whole disciplined practice, how do teams actually, do it? Well, the good news is you're not starting from scratch. There's a really well-established toolkit that you can pull from.
So teams have a bunch of proven techniques they can use. You can start with the basics, right? Like just using the public cost calculators from the cloud providers themselves. Or a really solid approach is to look at similar apps you're already running and use their costs as a kind of baseline. For smaller changes, you can often just extrapolate from your past usage data. And of course, for those bigger projects, you've got to factor in future plans, like how you're going to roll it out. But there's one technique here that's really powerful.
And that is trial run estimation. I mean, think about how cool this is. You can literally use your infrastructure as code to spin up the exact environment you're planning. Let it run for a day, maybe two, and just measure the actual real-world cost. Yeah, it might cost a little bit from your R&D budget, but the payoff is huge. You get a super realistic estimate and build some serious confidence in your numbers before you commit to anything big. So, who's actually doing all this work? Is it just some person in finance trying to guess what the engineers are going to build? No way. Absolutely not. Effective estimation is 100% a team sport. You really have to have everyone in the room because they all bring a critical piece of the puzzle. You've got engineering, who's providing all the technical details, answering, how are we actually going to build this thing? Then there's finance, providing that crucial budget context, asking, hey, can we afford this? And maybe they're the ones funding that trial run we just talked about. Product is there to keep everyone honest, always asking, but why? Does this actually create value for our customers? And then you have the FinOps team, kind of acting as the guide or the coach, bringing all the policies, pricing info, and best practices to tie it all together. Now, let's be real. Getting this dream team to work together perfectly, well, that doesn't just happen overnight. Like any other important capability, it's a journey. We're talking about maturity. Organizations learn and get better over time, and they move from pretty basic practices to way more sophisticated ones. Think of it in stages: crawl, walk, and run. When you're in the crawl stage, things are, well, they're pretty ad hoc. Your estimates are simple, maybe you're just using a spreadsheet. Then, as you mature, you get to the walk stage. Now your process is consistent, it's documented, you're starting to factor in things like discounts, and you're actually reviewing your estimates to see how accurate you are.
And then, finally, you get to the run stage. This is the goal. Here, estimation is deeply integrated, it's automated, and it becomes a truly strategic function that's helping to drive business decisions in almost real time.
And that really brings us to the whole point of this, right? Why go through all this effort? Is it really just about avoiding that nasty surprise on the bill? The answer is no. At the end of the day, getting good at cloud cost estimation is a strategic capability. It's what lets your teams explore new ideas without fear. It lets them compare different ways of building things, and then confidently, and that's the key word, confidently, invest in the ones that deliver the most value. It completely flips the script, turning the cloud from a source of financial anxiety into what it was always meant to be, a true engine for innovation.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. When you look at your own organization, is your cloud spending actively and predictably driving real value, or is it just driving surprises every month? The journey from one to the other, well, it all starts with solid planning and estimating. Thanks so much for tuning in.